The sound of fabric tearing cracked the lantern diner wide open. My sleeve split in Cole Whitaker's fist, and the whole room went so quiet. You could hear the neon hum, the tattoo on my shoulder. A small swallow inked over my jump wings with Evan under it, turned his face from smug to shaken in one breath. Folks swear that tattoo made the diner go silent. Truth is the silence had been living here a long time. The ink just gave it a reason to show up. If you'll walk back with me 3 days, I'll tell you how we got to that moment. I was 3 towns over, rent late, sleep light, eating out of cans, and stubborn pride telling myself I didn't need anyone, you know what I mean. And then I heard Ms. Lane on the phone say, fine, with a wobble in it. When a woman like Margot Lane, who taught me pie filling and how to count quarters without shorting myself, says fine like that, you don't debate, you drive. Cedar Hollow looked smaller, emptier for lease signs where a barber used to know your kid's name, and the ache in your left knee, the lantern still standing like a dare, 2 boards on the front windows. Close or burn sprayed crooked across old brick. Go home, baby, she told me at dawn, keys in a shaking hand. They want the building, not your bones, and I tied on an apron anyway, because I've done miles most folks don't talk about at cookouts, and quitting never tasted right in my mouth. Lunch crowd came in small and jumpy. Frank from Hollow Supply sat by the back door and stared at his hands like they might testify. 3 church ladies divided 1 slice of pecan pie into 4, like it was communion and confession both. Then Cole walked in wearing a car's worth of suit, took the center table so every eye had to cross him to look at anything else. Coffee, he said. Black clean cup, and he made a call loud enough for the back booth. Delay the demo, create urgency, Pruitt can handle the inspection. Like he wanted the words to hang in the grease air. Ms. Lane stood as tall as 5'2" can stand, told him he could eat like a human, or leave like a gentleman, and he smiled the way a boy does when he's about to pull wings off a fly, knocked his cup with a finger, so coffee bled across the white tile. Clean it, he said, and I looked at Ms. Lane, saw the fear, heard the math she was doing. Jobs, permits, taxes, the way power rearranges your choices. And I said no. The room hiccuped. Frank half stood, then sat. The church ladies clutched their purses like shields. Cole recalculated behind his eyes, and chose theatrics, dropped a single dollar on the table, promised 24 hours of hell. Taxes up, permits down the building, remembering it was old. Then left like he'd just signed the town over to himself. That should have been the worst of it, but Knight has a talent for calling the bluff. You think you'll never have to show a county truck ghosted to the alley in the rain. A dark sedan idled across the street with the window cracked for no reason. But one Deputy Chief Pruitt let himself in with a key nobody gave him, and 2 men followed, one with a toolbox, one with a clipboard, and the look of a man who knows where to draw red circles. I filmed from my car until my phone lit with an unknown number telling me to stop watching or come inside, so I went inside, said evening like I'd called them, and they told me it was an emergency inspection. Lucky timing, unsafe wiring, gas irregularities, all the phrases that sound like safety when you say them fast. They installed a meter that didn't need installing, aimed a handheld at a healthy line, and frowned like a sermon, photographed serial numbers and corners where nothing was wrong. So later they could make something wrong. And behind the coffee filters, a little red light blinked like a heartbeat that didn't belong to us. I looked straight into it and slid Cole's dollar under the lens. You missed a spot, I said, because sometimes you speak to the ghost in the wall so it knows you see it. Morning brought a condemnation notice taped to half the door, dated 3 hours before the inspection even started. Ms. Lane had her recipe cards in a shoebox and an old pepper shaker in her purse. When I walked in, "It's over," she said, and I told her it wasn't City Hall. It was a man with a golf buddy and a printer. We watched my video, felt our spines grow back inch by inch, and then I opened my beat-up laptop and started tugging at threads, because the thing about bullies with money is they leave paper footprints. You just have to know where to look. Shell companies looped back to Whitaker development like spiderweb. Assessed values didn't match reported values, properties. Cole owned had sailed through the kind of inspections he used to sink other folks, and one accountant had put a real street address where a P.O. box should have been 2 springs ago, which is how masks start to slip if you keep clicking. We called Cole, told him we were ready to talk, put him on speaker, and he arrived in 14 minutes with a folder thick enough to look important, and a face that said he was done pretending to be reasonable. He didn't negotiate, he read my discharge under honorable conditions, with mental health flags, an ER visit from a bad day, months without a steady address, facts shaped like weapons. And he slid the folder toward Ms. Lane like a mirror he wanted her to hold up to me. I went quiet not because he was right, but because shame has a way of grabbing your throat before your brain can catch up, and he saw it and pressed harder when this and she leaves. I fix your building. Everybody wins the kind of lie that sounds like mercy when you're tired. Here's where the road bends. Ms. Lane hit record on her phone and set it between us. Smile, she said, without smiling. You're on candid confession, and she nodded at the coffee station. Your camera saw us, see your camera. Then held up the notice with the wrong date, the tax filings with the wrong numbers, the single dollar on the counter that told a whole story in one insult. I dialed the civil rights tip line out of Cincinnati because the internet is good for more than fights and casserole recipes, and the agent on the other end asked for facts in a voice that made you believe facts still mattered. Then she came the same day with 2 people built like locked doors and a calm that settled over the room like rain after heat. Agent Elena Park looked at the red blinking device and called it what it was: unauthorized surveillance. Took our footage, asked Ms. Lane questions so gentle and precise they felt like sutures, and while we talked, the town started showing up. Frank with a story about a failing grade over the wrong trash bags, Mrs. Ortiz with a mold problem that made itself appear after a surprise visit. Tom from the flower kiosk with a lease that turned to dust when he wouldn't cooperate. Yeah, that happened. And when Cole walked back in with 2 lawyers, Agent Park handed him a warrant, like a mirror that doesn't blink. If you were there, you remember the color draining from men who think color can't drain from them. The church ladies pressing napkins to their chests, Frank standing an inch taller the way air feels when a long-held breath finally leaves a room. The headlines will tell you the neat part. Indictments, resignations, emails where words like leverage and break them live in black and white. But what I carry is smaller and heavier. The Friday after, when Table 7 finally stopped wobbling, because Frank came back with a drill and said if we're keeping this place, we ought to fix what we can, and we did. We made coffee and plans, and a small business council, with a pot of money you can borrow, without getting scolded by a teller, told to say no first. 2 months later, a man in a plain black suit came in like someone who's learned grief by heart, introduced himself as Malcolm Whitaker, Cole's father, Evans, too, and asked if I was the one who held Evan's hand outside Zaranj, and I told him yes, because sometimes truth is the only kindness that counts. He listened like a father, then put an envelope on the table, said, the inheritance meant for Evan would not under any circumstance fall back to Cole. He'd set up a fund instead. Loans for small businesses crushed by intimidation, mental health care for veterans fighting the quieter war, legal help when money and City Hall hold hands, and asked if we'd run it from the lantern, so help would always have a door you can open without an appointment. Folks had opinions so fast, the biscuits didn't finish baking. Take it and build or refuse it and keep clean hands. And we argued in public, because that's what free people do. We set strings we could cut if Malcolm ever tried to steer it. I said yes on one condition. No tower office, just a table by the window anyone could knock on. You came here for the tattoo, I know, and it mattered. It made a bully see a person at the worst possible moment. But it wasn't ink that changed Cedar Hollow. It was a tired woman who pressed record. A town more ashamed of its silence than afraid of his money. An agent who did her job without needing a headline, and a father who looked at two sons and chose which legacy would carry the family name. So let me put the question in your lap, because stories like this don't end. They hand the mic to the room. If justice shows up, partly paid for by money, that once greased the harm, do you take it and build or refuse it, and wait for a cleaner miracle if your town could heal faster with help from a name that hurt it? Is that redemption or reputation washing? If Table 7 wobbled under your elbow and the drill came from the wrong house, would you tighten the screws? Tell me in the comments where you land, and why tell me what you've seen where you live. Who got crushed because a handshake weighed more than the truth who stood anyway? And if this hit something real in you, subscribe, share it with someone who needs the reminder that saying no to a mess that calls itself power is still how things change.